Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to begin a new crash course on Autogen. So basically, what is Autogen and what is Autogen used for? So Autogen is a framework that is used to build kind of agentic AI behaviors instead of your LLM based applications. So basically, if you want to have multiple agents collaborating to achieve a certain task or to do something, and you want to use an LLM, and that's going to be an application, then Autogen is a framework to do exactly just that. So in this crash course, we're going to look at a couple of things, and I'm going to build a couple the final project at the end of the tutorial. So let's just take a look at what we are going to cover in this tutorial, in this whole crash course. Basically, we're going to look at what is Autogen. You're going to what is Autogen, what's the base of Autogen. I'm going to show you a demonstration of what you can do with Autogen, which is actually going to be the final project that you're going to be building at the end of the course. Then you're going to look at the different terminologies so that you guys don't get lost with whenever I'm making the video and I'm using some terminologies that you guys don't understand. So just take a look at the basics terminologies. And then fourthly, we'll go into the project setup, how to set up everything, install the libraries and everything. And then finally, we'll look at the basic, how to build a basic two-agent AI system, an agentic behavior system, using having only two agents, right? So we'll look at, first of all, we'll start from the building blocks, and then we'll put up all the building blocks, everything that we learned together to build the final project. Okay, so the first we're going to look is how to just build a simple two-agent LLM-based application system. And then finally, we'll look at how to add different tools to these agents that they can use. Okay, so if you know what are tools and how agents can use tools, don't worry about that. We'll cover all that when you reach that bridge. And then we're going to look at how to have group chats. So basically, group chats is you can have multiple agents, and this agent can be in a group, like a group setting, and they can have conversation among each other, or to basically have a discussion on how to complete a certain task, whereby each agent can be specialized in doing one specific thing, another agent can be specialized in doing a different thing, right? So you can prompt them to behave and or have personality depending on how you want them to act within the group. And then finally, we'll look at a synchronous function, call how to call tools or functions asynchronously. And then finally, look at how to build a final, put all these things together into a final Streamlit project that you're going to build at the end of the video, at the end of the course. Sorry. Because this course is going to come in multiple chunks. So this is going to be all in the first chunk, and then where we're going to go ahead and build a simple agentic AI system. Okay, that's going to be the first part. Okay, so let me just go ahead and show you a demonstration of the final project you're going to build at the end of the course. So we're going to build a project that's going to have basically a group chat of multiple agents. So instead of our agent, you're going to have Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and also Bill Gates agentic basically actors that are going to act as Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk, and they're going to ask them to have a discussion on anything. Okay, so they can have a discussion on maybe climate change, global warming, technology, the future of AI. So this, you can create 3 different agents, and you can prompt them to act like Elon Musk, one to act like Bill Gates, another one to act like Steve Jobs. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into that. So now let's go ahead and jump into that and see how that. Let me just show you a demo of actually the project we're going to build. So let me just go ahead and go in here. So this is the project we're going to build at the end of the video. So you can have multiple agents here. You can add your own agents if you want. You can add some old man, like you can basically add different things. Okay, I just added these few agents. Okay, so you can select which agent you want to use. Then you specify the prompt that you want this agent, or the behavior that you want this agent, kind of like a system message that you want this agent to keep in mind, or how you want the agent to behave. You specify that prompt in here, and then yeah, that's basically it. So in this case, we're going to have only 3 prompts. So we can also have you can use either GPT-3 3.5 Turbo, or you can use GPT-4. Okay, so I'm going to be using GPT-4. For this, I'm going to go ahead and add in my API key right here. So once I have my API key, I can go ahead and specify, let's say, you are Elon Musk, something just like that. Okay, so you can take your time to write all the complicated prompts you want, but I'm just gonna keep it simple just for the sake of saving time and for the video. Okay, so Steve Jobs, and then you say this is gonna be Bill Gates, right? So you are Bill Gates. Okay, you can specify more complicated prompts if you want to, but I'm just gonna keep everything very simple. So once we have that in, I'm going to go and ask them to discuss climate change, just like that. So discuss climate change. You can see all the 3 bots got activated, and they're going to start discussing basically what climate change is. And basically you can just ask them to have any kind of discussion that you want. So the discussion will be between the AI agents. It's going to be a group chat. In the group chat we have 3 different people, right? Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and Bill Gates. So you can see this is Elon Musk right here, climate change, blah blah. And you can see all the conversations between these different agents right here. Okay, so that's basically how you can have an agentic behavior, whereby you can have multiple agents instead of one group chat, and this agent can be discussing various things. So this is Bill Gates, that's right, Elon, the effects of climate change, blah blah blah, and you can see all that in there. Okay, so basically, these agents are just talking to each other, whereby one is impersonating as Elon Musk, another one is impersonating as Steve Jobs, another one is impersonating as Bill Gates. You can have them have discussions on different topics of your interest. So, guys, that's basically the project, and you can take some time. If you want, the code is gonna be available on GitHub, everything. So let's go ahead and actually jump in the course, and let's see how uh, we can actually set up this on our own. We'll study all the things, fundamental things that we need, so that you can set this up on your own. So I'm just gonna stop this for now because we don't need it, so you can see the different conversations between the different agents right here. Okay, also this conversation can continue as long as you want it to, or you can set a limit to it on how many loops of like rounds of discussion you should have, and then after reach that limit, the conversation will get ended. Okay, so that's basically it. So now let's jump into it. Let me show you how you can set this up and how you can build this. Okay, so now let's first of all go ahead and look at what is Autogen. So Autogen, this is just a definition from the official Microsoft Autogen documentation page. On the very first page, autogen.com, I think. Autogen provides a multi-agent conversation framework as a high-level abstraction, right? It is an open source library for enabling a next-generation LLM application with multiple agents collaborating, teachability, and personalization. With this framework, users can build LLM workflows, right? So basically, the whole idea behind Autogen is build multi-agent generative AI applications. That's basically the whole idea behind Autogen, to build multi-agent generative AI applications. That's what the whole thing about Autogen. Okay, so now that we have looked at what Autogen is, let's look at some basic terminology that we need to understand. So we talk about agent, right? You say agentic AI behavior or agentic AI systems. So what's an agent? So you can think of an agent as one member of a team. So you have a team, right? A team of multiple people, in this case agents, right? So each individual person within the team is called an agent, and has a unique personality, has its own memory, has its own way of acting, has its own knowledge base. You can give it its own knowledge base, you can give it its own collection of tools. That is an agent. And then finally, you can think of tasks. That's basically what you want to have these agents accomplish. These are the tasks, like the work that you want them to do. And then the tools are just basically devices that help these agents to carry out those objectives or the tasks that you want them to complete. For example, you can have an agent that have a tool that enables you to browse the web. Like for now, sometimes you might need to browse the web to get some latest information, right? So you can have tools that enable you to do that. And if you've watched my other videos where we build different agentic AI LLM based applications, like using LangGraph or using True AI, you can check those videos out on the channel. We talk about all this, right? So, but if you haven't watched those videos, fine and well, you can all follow along here. Okay, so that's an agent, a tool, and a task. So that's done. I think those are the basic terminology that you need to know for now. And then now let's get started. If there are any other terminologies, I will explain to you as we go through the project. Now let's go ahead and do the project setup. So to do a project setup, I'm going to be using Poetry. Okay, so you can also use the normal Python env if you're comfortable with that. But in my case, I'm going to be using Poetry, and I'm going to have a couple of things installed. Okay, so let's go ahead and run these commands to install all the things that we need to get started. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my terminal, and this is where the Streamlit application is running. So I'm just going to go ahead and exit that. Okay, it's just a demo application that I showed you. This way it was running at, so you can see the different conversations between the AI agents. Okay, so now I'm here. I'm inside of my project, my tutorials folder where I have all my tutorials files. So let's go ahead and see what's the first command. So the first command is poetry new autogen, which is basically any name of the project folder. You can use any name right here. Okay, and then even this one can be any name right here. The sections part can be any name, but everything must be the same. So poetry new, and then the project name. So poetry. You need to also have poetry installed, okay, to be able to do this. So yeah, you can check the poetry official documentation to do this. So poetry new, and I'm going to call it autogen underscore course. Let's say tutorial. Tutorial. I hope I have no folder like that. And if I have an name, and I'm going to create another folder inside of this tutorials, autogen tutorials folder. I'm going to call it sections. We're going to have the different sections in there. Okay, so sections, and you can call this any name, anything you want. I'm going to call it sections, and then you press enter. that's going to go ahead and create a package called sections inside of a folder called Autogen. So Autogen tutorials is our main folder in our project folder, and inside you have another folder called sections, and you can check that out if you want to. Okay, so you can just go ahead and say change directory into Autogen, and if you do an ls, you can see you have sections there, and this is for tests and every readme and then the toml file that you have. Okay, so I'm also going to go ahead and now import my environment variables, virtual environment, sorry, virtual environments into my project that VS Code can have access to it, and we stop getting any kind of linting errors and stuff like that. So I'm going to simply say poetry config, and then say poetry config hyphen virtual envs dot in hyphen project. You're going to say true. So I hope I have got that command right. So once I have that, I press enter, and that's going to go ahead and let me see. Okay, doesn't exist. So let me just go ahead and see here. Config virtual envs, and then dot in project, and then true. So poetry. What did I get wrong? Right here, poetry config, and then it says command config doesn't exist. So let's see where I probably made an error right here. So poetry, I got the spellings right. So poetry config, and then config hyphen virtual envs. Okay, so I just checked this out on Google, and I happen to make an error. I happen to have an error in my code. So basically, there is no hyphen in here. I just kept a hyphen. I don't know why I did that, but there's no hyphen in here. Okay, so there's no hyphen in here. That was my issue. So we just say poetry config and then virtual envs dot in project hyphen dot in hyphen project and then true. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and create basically a .env file instead of our folder, our project folder. That's VS Code and other editors can have access to, so to avoid these annoying hinting errors that you get. Okay, so once we have that done, now let's go ahead and simply add something. So I'm going to install now poetry add, and then we're going to say PyAutogen. So PyAutogen. Okay, and then press enter. So PyAutogen is a library for Autogen that you're going to be using, and you can read more about it from here. Let me just close this. We don't need it anymore. You can read more about it from here. PyAutogen documentation, and you can also read how to installation. You can go to documentation, and you can just open a new window and just say PyAutogen install, just like that, and you'll find the documentation on how to okay, let me see, Autogen install. Okay, and you should be able to find the documentation on how to install PyAutogen, and all that information is here, and you can read through it and how to install it. So this is the command that you are going to use. If you're using a Python env file or env environment, you can just use pip install, and then you can have that. But if you're using poetry, you just have to say poetry add, and then simply add that. Now here you're going to get an error, and this error I expect you get this error. So I'm going to go ahead and simply open this in VS Code. So open this in VS Code. So once I have my VS Code open up, this is the VS Code right here, and you can see this is the env file that we have. And then now inside of here, what you're going to go ahead and do is you need to go ahead and change the Python version. So you can see you need to add this to this. Okay, so just copy this right here. You can read all the errors and why you got them, and provide you a suggestion to do. So just follow that suggestion, which is just simply updating your Python version. So just copy that and paste that over here. And once you have that pasted there, you can go ahead and clear the terminal, and then simply run that command again. And this is gonna go ahead and install now poetry on your Autogen on your virtual environment. So just go ahead and make sure that you have the Python versions specified as this, or as whatever Autogen suggested, or whatever poetry suggested to you. Okay, so once we have that done, we should now go ahead and run the command to install Autogen. Okay, so once Autogen is installed, what are you going to do? So this is a whole timeline of the whole crash course. So you're going to go, you're going to look at each piece in each individual video. So for example, in this video, you're going to look the first video in the tutorials and the series. You're going to looking at a creating a basic agentic system using an LLM. Okay, so the first thing you're going to have two agents instead of application, basically two agents, and one is going to be an assistant, and one is going to be like the user proxy. Basically, that represents the human inside of our agent orchestration. Okay, so now let me just go in here and create a file. I'm going to call this one. I'm going to call this folder. I'm going to call this section. Okay, I actually need to create a folder, not a file. So I'm going to call it section underscore 01. Okay. So instead of section 01, I'm going to add a file. I'm going to call this file path underscore 01.py. Where's the first video in the series? And instead of here, I'm going to go ahead now create the first app, our first agentic application using Autogen. So I'm going to simply say from Autogen, I'm going to go ahead and import the following. So I'm going to go ahead and import assistant. Okay, basically this is a lower key assistant, assistant agent, just like that. I'm also going to go ahead and import user proxy agent, just like that. So I need to have these two things imported right here from Autogen. I'm going to go ahead and import the assistant agent, and I'm also going to import the user proxy agent. So for some reason, the VS Code is not picking up my environment. So sometimes you need to go in here and then simply have the select your own the correct environment that you want to use. So this one right here. Okay, so that's not the one I want to use. So just go here and then search for the environment that you want to use, and have that specified in here. So this is the one that I want to use. Okay, let's see if it picks it up. Yeah, it picks it up. So sometimes it can take a bit of time. Yeah, so now you can see now it has that pillar. So this is now maybe I made a typo here, assistant agent, just like that. Okay, so once we have, okay, this is actually an assistant with a capital A. So an assistant agent, that's actually a class. So once we have that imported, we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing also, I also want to go ahead and import, let me also say import Autogen right here, Autogen. Okay, we'll use this just in a second. I don't know why this is not getting imported. And I'm also going to go ahead and so import assistant agent just there. Okay, good. So once we have that done, now we need to go ahead and specify our environment, but not our environment variable, basically our configuration. Okay, so I'm going to say config underscore list is going to be equals to autogen dot config the config list from JSON. Okay, so config list from JSON. So once you specify config list from JSON, you're going to go ahead and pass in now a JSON file, and this JSON file is going to have our configurations that you're going to be using for our agents. So basically, you could have things like the ALM that you're going to be using, the 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 API keys for this. In this case, I'm going to be using OpenAI, so make sure that you have OpenAI key. And if you don't have one, you can just go in here and just go to OpenAI, and then go ahead and click on you just have to go ahead and simply log in. And once you're logged in, you can go ahead and create an OpenAI API key, and that API key is what we're going to be using to this that's what we're going to specify inside of our config file. Okay, so once I have that done, let's go ahead and now specify which file that is going to be. So I'm going to say OAI underscore config underscore list dot JSON, just like that. So OAI underscore config underscore list dot JSON. So once we have this file in there, now we need to go ahead and create this file. Okay, because you're saying this file is 2 directories back, so you're inside this directory. You're saying we're going 2 back directories. You're going back 1 directory. So this file needs to be in here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a file in here. I'm going to go OAI underscore must be the same that you specified here. Must be the same that you specified here. Okay, underscore list dot JSON. So let's make sure you have that file. So OAI underscore here OAI underscore config underscore list dot JSON. So you need to have this file specified, and instead of this file, we need to go ahead and specify a couple of things. So this way, you're going to go ahead and specify which LLM that you want to use, and also the keys, the API keys, these LLMs that you want to use. So we're going to pass in a list of dictionaries or a list of JSON objects. So we're going to have the first one will be the model. You're going to specify which model you want to use. So I'm going to use the model. I'm going to use the GPT-4 model. So I'm going to say GPT-4. And then finally, you can go ahead and specify the API key to this AI, basically the AI API key to this model. So this GPT-4 model. Okay, and this is gonna be your OpenAI API key. So you may something like SK hyphen and then some gibberish follows right here. So make sure that you go ahead and get your OpenAPI key from the OpenAPI official documentation or from here, their home website right here. And once you have the API key, make sure that you add it in here. Okay, so make sure that you have those things done. Okay, so let me go ahead and add in my API key. Again, you can have multiple configs, so you can just copy this right here and duplicate it a multiple time, and then change which model you're using, and also specify the API key to that model if the API key is needed. Okay, so let me just go ahead and update this with my my Open API key, because and then I can show you that because I don't want anyone to have access to my Open API key. So I hope you get that right. So let me just add in my Open API key right here and close this file, and I'll be back recording. Okay, so once I have all that specified in there, we are good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and specify llm-config in here, and this is going to be equals to a Python dictionary. And inside of this dictionary, I'm going to go ahead and specify a couple of keys and values. So config underscore we're going to say config list, and this config list is going to be the config list that we have graded above here. So just pass in that, and then finally we also need to go ahead and specify the timeout. So this guy is saying timeout. Okay, the timeout, and I'm going to go ahead and say, we can say 600, just like that. Okay, once we have all that in there, now we can go ahead and create our assistant. So this is we're creating create assistant agent. And our assistant agent, to create the assistant agent, you can give it any name. So I'm going to create, I'm going to call it assistant, just to keep things simple. So I'm going to call it assistant, then equals to, let's say, assistant agent right here. And instead of here, you're going to provide a couple of things. You're providing the name of this assistant, and the name you can go ahead and give it any name you want. I'm going to call it assistant. Okay, just keep it everything simple. Then you also need to provide in the LLM config, and this is going to be our LLM config that we specified above here. So this right here, so hang it here right here. Okay, good. So once we have that, now we're going to create a user proxy. Now we're going to call this user proxy Simply, you can give it any name that you want. It conceptually a proxy agent for humans. Basically, it's solidizing human input as the agent's reply at each interaction turns by default, and also having a capability to execute code and call functions. That's basically what a user proxy does. So a user proxy basically acts like a human on behalf of the user of the application, or the user of the LLM application. That's what the user proxy is, right? So that's a proxy. Now, once we have that, now we're going to go ahead and create that. So let's create a user underscore proxy agent. Okay. So now we're going to say, we're going to call it user underscore proxy. It's going to be equals to user proxy class, and you're going to go give it a name. And we're going to call it user underscore proxy. You're going to go ahead and give it an LLM configuration. You're going to specify the LLM configuration that we have. And then finally, you can provide in other things, like you can provide in the termination and other stuff like that. So let's go ahead and specify that. So we're going to say is underscore terminate message. It's going to be equals to lambda. You're going to use a lambda function. You're going to take in x, and you're going to say x dot get. You're going to get content. And then finally, if there's no content, you're going to return an empty string. And you say end x dot get. You're going to go ahead and get the content. If the content is not there, you're going to return again an empty string. They're going to go ahead and do a strip on of this. So once I have, I'm going to say dot right strip. We're going to do a right strip on it. So r strip, just like strip, just like this. And then I'm going to call this, and then say dot ends with. And you're going to go ahead and say ends with terminate, just like that. So terminate. So that's basically what you need to do right there. So that's it. So let me just save this. Okay, so let me just remove that, and let's go over this to make sure I didn't make any typos or anything like that. So we're going to say terminate a message equals to lambda, taking x, you're getting x dot content. If there's no content found, you're going to return an empty string. And you're saying end, going to get x dot content again, and you're going to do an r strip on it, r strip, and you're going to do dot ends with terminate. Okay, so dot ends with terminate. That's basically it. So once we have that done, you're also going to go ahead and add in the human input. So when you're creating this LLM, sometimes you can have human inputs, like you can basically join the conversation with the AI agent. So we have multiple AI agents that are talking to each other, right? So sometimes you can go ahead and also input your have human input or the user input into the system or into the group chat yourself, like a physical human input. So in this case, you're going to say that input is going to be never, so just to allow the AIs themselves to have a conversation with themselves. So we're going to say human, let me get that right. So human, basically human input mode, and you're going to go ahead and say a string of never. Make sure that all this is capped. So you can also say always, whereby the human input will always be required, but in this case you're going to say never to make sure that we don't get any human input. Okay, so physical human input, just allow the proxy and the agent to interact with each other. Okay, so once we have that, now we can let's initialize a conversation. So initialize initialize messages or initialize conversation or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to say user proxy dot initialize. So initialize, and I'm going to initiate chat. So initiate underscore chat, and you can begin to initiate chat. So basically, to initiate chat, you're going to pass in the recipient, which is going to be the assistant that we created, and you're also going to go ahead and pass in the messages, but basically what you want them to have a message about. So messages are going to be equal. So you're going to tell them to tell me about let's say the second world war. Okay, so this agent will have a conversation among themselves, and they're going to be discussing the Second World War. Okay, I'm just fan of a history. I'm a big fan of history, so that's why I'm talking about the Second World War, not because I love wars. Okay, it's just that I love history. Okay, so that's basically, so user proxy dot initiate chat, and you're going to pass in the recipient, which is going to be the assistant, and the message that you want them to have a conversation about. You just told me about the Second World War. Okay, or it can be anything that you are interested in. So that's basically how we can have those agents work together. So that we have created an agent right here called assistant. We have created a user proxy that's going to be acting as a human in the conversation, in the agentic conversation between the agents. And then finally, you just initiate that message. Okay. So make sure that you have everything set up. You have your file set up and has all your models specified, and also the configuration of your API keys. Okay. Open API keys or whatever model you're using. Okay, so once we have that, now let's go ahead into sections, section 1. And once I'm in there, I'm going to go ahead and simply say poetry. Okay, let me get that right. So poetry run, and I'm going to say, okay, let me see something. Let me just clear the terminal. Okay, so poetry. Okay, today is a bad typo day for me. So poetry part, and then finally poetry, and then finally Python 3 run, and then part 1.py. So just run that. So okay, so Python 3 is not found. So poetry. Okay, my bad. I got the commands wrong right here. So poetry run, and then Python 3 part 1.py. So this basically runs the script, and we should be able to see a conversation between the chats, in case hopefully we don't have, I didn't make any typos anywhere. So now you can see the conversation between the chats. So now the first one is a user proxy to the assistant, basically. So the user proxy is telling something to the assistant, which is tell me about World War II. So basically the proxy, the user proxy is acting like us, and then talking to the assistant, telling the assistant to tell him more about the World War II. World War. Okay, it just said World War. I forgot to mention World War II, so I just said World War. Sorry, Second World War. Okay, fine, that's fine. Second World War, World War II is fine. So you can see right here, they're having a conversation there. So this guy, I think he needs to get some information about World War II. So he actually generated a Python script, and this Python script is using Beautiful Soup. So he's gonna be using Beautiful Soup to pull something from online about World War II, right? You can see it's gonna be executing this script. So this script will be written by the assistant and given to the human proxy, the user proxy, and the user proxy is going to go execute the code. Basically, this code is going to execute the code, so you can find out things about World War II. So you can find World War II. It's written about the aftermath of the World War, the military collab operations, forces, and resources of the European combatant, blah blah blah. And you can see it's searching all that information. So it rated a code, basically a beautiful soup code. You can see that for the user, or the user proxy wants to execute the code, and it failed to execute the code because it needs to install a couple of things. So it's going to go ahead and install all those things that it needs. So you can see it's installing your URL lib and all that thing that it needs. And once it's installed all those things, now you can go ahead and run the code. Now, so now it's going ahead and attempting to run the code again. Okay, so sometimes you can actually provide in you can provide a Docker environment to actually run the code on. So the user proxy ran the code, which is basically acting like us, and it got an error. The script has set Wikipedia language to English, search for the page corresponding to World War II, and print the title of the page and the article summary. So that's basically what they're trying to do. Okay, so now the user proxy is going to execute the code, and if there's any error, it's going to go ahead and tell the assistant, hey, that this code is not working, and the assistant will do modifications to the code until the code works. So in this case, you can see the code works successfully, and we can getting information about World War II. So you can see how the agents are working collaboratively together to achieve whatever task we gave them. So you can see it's searching for World War II content using the Wikipedia library in Python. So yeah, it's getting different messages and other things like that. So based now on these things that it's going to get from online, it's going to be able to respond to our questions or whatever we told it to do. So please run this code to get a summary of World War II. So the assistant is telling the user proxy to kindly execute this code, which is this block of code right here, this Python script, to get information about World War III. So our user proxy is going to execute the code, and it's going to go ahead and get the output like this. Okay. So that's basically how agents, you can see you are basically doing nothing. You're just sitting here and these agents are working among themselves to achieve something. So you can see now it got all the information it wants, and then the assistant to the AI project. I apologize for the mistake I made in the previous steps. It seems Wikipedia Python library is experiencing unexpected behavior and returning blah blah. I appreciate your patience. For now, I will give you a brief summary of World War II based on information I have. So based on the information it had, it's now giving a brief information of World War II based on its Google search, right, that it did. So, and using the Python script that it wrote, the agent wrote, and the human proxy executed. So sometimes this code is running on your machine. So something can be you don't allow, like, you can create applications that allow people to run code on your server. That's really dangerous, right? So sometimes you can provide in a Docker environment, and this runs in a Docker environment so that in case someone wants to do anything malicious, it doesn't really affect you. Again, that's very complicated stuff, but I'm just letting you guys know in advance. So you can see basically we got back the responses right here, and eventually we got back terminate, and then the program ends. So good. So that's basically how you can have an agentic behavior. In this case, we had two agents, one as the assistant and one as a human proxy, and then they are both having a conversation on how to solve this task on World War II. So the assistant runs the code, writes the code, gives to the agent executes the code, gives feedback, and then modifications are made to the code back and forth until the code works and they get the information, and then finally they present the final information to you in this kind of format. So that's basically how we have agentic behaviors instead of we can apply agentic behaviors instead of our LLM based applications, right? So in this case, you just have two agents. In other cases, you can have multiple agents, and these multiple agents can cooperate together to achieve a certain thing. And you're going to look at all that in the upcoming videos. So guys, this is all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like, you share, you subscribe to the YouTube channel to get the future videos that are going to come in the content in the whole series. So in the next video, we're going to look at how to add different tools that our agents can use. And also we're going to look at group chats and how to use a synchronous function call, and then we'll build the final project I showed you using the Streamlit application, right? So guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, make sure that you like the video, you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you follow me on other social media platforms, link in the description below, so you can stay updated on all the latest stuff on programming, AI, and LM based applications. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.